My daughter was 5 years old when my mother-in-law told her she was not a real member of the family. We were standing in their living room. Everyone had just arrived for the annual planning meeting for the beach house trip. My daughter had her little suitcase already packed. She had been talking about this trip for 2 months. My mother-in-law looked at her and said, "Sweetheart, this trip is for family members only. You are not a real member of this family yet." My daughter looked at me. I did not cry. I walked her to the couch, sat her down, and went to my car. I came back with the notarized deed. I handed it to my mother-in-law. The document said, "This property belongs to Emma Catherine Chen, in perpetuity, as granted by the estate of Dorothy Margaret Chen." My husband's lawyer called 11 minutes later. Some people in my family still think I went too far. My mother says I humiliated her son's family in front of everyone. She is not entirely wrong. But they started it when they looked at my child and told her she did not belong. The room went silent after I handed over the deed. My mother-in-law held the paper like it was going to burn her. My father-in-law stood up from his chair. He said, "This cannot be real." I told him it was recorded with the county 9 years ago. My sister-in-law was sitting on the other couch. She said, "Why would your grandmother leave a beach house to a child?" I told her you would have to ask my grandmother, but she passed away 10 years ago, so that conversation is not happening. My husband stood near the window. He was not looking at me. He was looking at his phone. His brother asked how much the house was worth. I did not answer that question. Let me tell you how we got here. I met my husband in graduate school. He came from what people call old money. His family had owned that beach house for 3 generations. It was in Cape May, 7 bedrooms, right on the water. His mother hosted the family there every August. 20 to 30 people, coordinated activities, matching shirts for the cousins. I went to my first beach trip 6 months after we started dating. His mother pulled me aside on the second day and told me the house would stay in the family forever. She said it like it was a warning. I smiled and said that sounded lovely. My grandmother was not old money. She was an immigrant who cleaned houses and saved everything. She bought a small house in Philadelphia in 1973 for $18,000. She sold it in 2008 for $412,000. She bought another property in 2009 for $90,000. She sold that one in 2014 for $370,000. She did that 6 times. She was strategic. She was patient. When she died, she left me her portfolio and a trust fund for my future children. The beach house in Cape May was one of the properties. She bought it in 2015 from a estate sale for $260,000. She put it in a trust with my daughter's name on it the day my daughter was born. The trust also had $200,000 in cash. I was the trustee until my daughter turned 25. I did not tell my husband's family any of this. My grandmother had asked me not to. She said, "Let them think what they want, you will know the truth." So I did. My mother-in-law assumed I came from nothing. She was not cruel about it at first, just condescending. She would offer to take me shopping and then suggest stores that were having sales. She gave me advice about budgeting. She told me I should think about something more sustainable than my career in consulting. I had signed my third 6-figure contract that week. I did not correct her. I went to the sales. I thanked her for the advice. I built my business quietly. If you have ever been counted out by someone who should have known better, you already know what that silence feels like. The comments got sharper after my daughter was born. My mother-in-law told me I should stay home full-time. She said children need their mothers and that my career was not as important as my husband's. My husband made $78,000 a year at that point. I made $214,000. I did not say that. I smiled. I said I would think about it. Then I hired a nanny and expanded my client base. At my daughter's second birthday party, my sister-in-law pulled me aside. She said, "You know this family takes care of its own, right? You do not have to struggle." I asked what she meant. She said, "We know money is tight. If you need help with Emma's preschool tuition, just ask." I thanked her. I had already prepaid 3 years of preschool tuition that morning. $31,000. I did not mention it. My father-in-law asked me once why I did not drive a nicer car. I drove a Honda. He said, "You are part of this family now. Appearances matter." I told him I liked my car. He offered to co-sign a loan for me. I said I would think about it. I had $400,000 in liquid assets at that point. I bought my daughter a trust-managed education fund the next week, $65,000 to start. My husband knew some of this, not all of it. He knew I did well. He did not know how well. He did not ask detailed questions. I did not offer detailed answers. His family assumed he was the breadwinner. He never corrected them. That bothered me, but I stayed quiet. I was building something. The The beach house planning meetings happened every April. The family would gather at my in-laws' main house to discuss the August trip, who was sleeping where, what activities were planned, who was bringing what food. My mother-in-law ran these meetings like board meetings. She had a binder. She assigned tasks. One year she assigned me the task of organizing a day trip for the children. She said, something affordable. Not everyone can spend freely like some people. She looked at my sister-in-law when she said it. My sister-in-law had just bought a Mercedes. I nodded. I planned a day at the beach with sandwiches I made myself. The children had a great time. My mother-in-law told me I had done a good job. She said, see. You do not need money to make memories. I called my financial advisor that night. Her name was Patricia Reyes. I asked her about the beach house trust. She said everything was in order. The deed was recorded. The trust was funded. My daughter was the legal owner. I was the trustee. I asked what that meant for access. She said I controlled everything until my daughter turned 25. I could allow or deny access to anyone. I could sell the property if I wanted. The only restriction was that the proceeds had to stay in the trust. I thanked her. I did not do anything with that information yet, but I kept it. The comments continued. My brother-in-law joked once that I had married up. Everyone laughed. I laughed too. My mother told me later I should be grateful. She said my husband's family had welcomed me even though I was not from their world. I did not argue. I opened my laptop that night and reviewed my portfolio. I had just closed a deal worth $190,000. I was doing fine. My daughter started asking questions when she was 4. She wanted to know why grandmother's family had a big house and we did not. I told her we had what we needed. She asked why grandmother bought her cousins expensive presents and gave her books. I told her books were valuable. She accepted that, but I saw the confusion. I saw her trying to understand why she was treated differently. That bothered me more than anything they said to me. The beach house conversation came up again when my daughter turned 5. My mother-in-law was planning the August trip. She mentioned in passing that the house would eventually go to my husband's brother. She said this at a family dinner. My husband did not react. His brother smiled and said, I will take good care of it. My sister-in-law started talking about renovations she wanted to do. New kitchen, expanded deck. She had drawings. I ate my dinner. I did not say anything. My daughter heard some of this. She asked me later if we would still go to the beach house when Uncle Matthew owned it. I told her we would always go to the beach. She asked if we would go to that beach. I told her yes. She asked how I knew. I said, because that house belongs to you, sweetheart. She looked confused. I told her we would talk about it when she was older. She accepted that. I started preparing after that dinner. I did not decide to humiliate anyone. I decided to protect my child. Those are different things. I called Patricia. I asked her to prepare copies of the deed, the trust documents, and the transfer records. I asked her to have everything notarized and ready to present. She asked if there was a problem. I told her I expected one soon. She said she would have everything ready within a week. I called my accountant. His name was David Chu. I asked him to prepare a summary of my business assets and my daughter's trust fund. I asked him to keep it simple. 1 page, clear numbers. He asked why. I said I might need to clarify some misconceptions. He said he understood. He sent me the summary 3 days later. I did not tell my husband what I was doing. He would have tried to manage it quietly. He would have wanted to avoid conflict. I understood that, but my daughter had just been told she was not a real member of the family. There was no quiet way to handle that. The planning meeting was scheduled for April 14th. My mother-in-law sent out the agenda 2 weeks early. The beach house trip was the main topic. She had added a new section called long-term planning. I knew what that meant. She was going to formalize the transfer to my brother-in-law. She was going to do it in front of everyone, so it felt like a family decision. I had seen her do this before with other family assets. I told my daughter we were going to the meeting. She asked if she could bring her suitcase. She wanted to be ready for the beach trip. I told her that was a great idea. She packed it herself: bathing suit, sunscreen, 3 books, her favorite stuffed turtle. She was so excited. We arrived at my in-laws' house at 2 o'clock. Everyone was already there. My mother-in-law had set up the living room with chairs in a circle. She had her binder open. My father-in-law was sitting in his usual chair by the window. My brother-in-law and sister-in-law were on the couch. My husband's aunt and uncle were there too. My daughter sat next to me with her little suitcase at her feet. My mother-in-law started the meeting. She went through the usual items: arrival times, meal responsibilities, activity schedule. Then she got to the long-term planning section. She said the family needed to think about the future of the beach house. She said the house had been in the family for generations and needed to stay that way. She said my brother-in-law and his wife had expressed interest in taking over primary responsibility for the property. She said this made sense because they had the means to maintain it properly. My sister-in-law nodded. She said they had already talked to a contractor about the renovations. She showed everyone the drawings again. New kitchen, expanded deck, updated bathrooms. She said it would cost about $150,000, but it would be worth it. My mother-in-law said that sounded wonderful. She said the family would of course still use the house every August, but Matthew and Jennifer would be the primary caretakers. My father-in-law said this was a good plan. He said the house needed people who could invest in it properly. He looked at me when he said it, not directly, just a glance, but I saw it. My husband did not say anything. He was looking at his phone. My daughter tugged on my sleeve. She whispered, "Are we still going to the beach?" I told her yes. She smiled. My mother-in-law said she wanted to make this official. She had already talked to the family lawyer. The house was currently in a family trust. She wanted to transfer primary control to my brother-in-law. She said this would not affect anyone's ability to use the house. It would just clarify who is responsible for decisions and maintenance. That is when she looked at my daughter. She said, "Now, about this August, we need to finalize the sleeping arrangements." She went through the list. My brother-in-law and his family in the main bedroom, my husband's aunt and uncle in the second bedroom, cousins in the bunk room. She got to my daughter's name and paused. She said, "Actually, I think this year might be better for the adults. Emma is still quite young. Maybe next year when she is a bit older and more settled into the family." My daughter looked at her. She said, "But I am in the family. I am Emma." My mother-in-law smiled. The kind of smile adults give children when they are trying to be patient. She said, "Sweetheart, this trip is for family members only. You are not a real member of this family yet." The room went very quiet. My daughter looked at me. Her eyes were starting to water. She did not understand. She was 5 years old. She thought family was simple. She thought if you loved people and they loved you, you were family. I did not cry. I did not raise my voice. I stood up. I took my daughter's hand. I walked her to the couch on the other side of the room. I told her to sit with her suitcase and wait for me. She nodded. She was trying not to cry. I went to my car. I had a folder in the trunk. I had put it there that morning. I brought it inside. I opened it. I took out the notarized deed. I walked back into the living room. Everyone was watching me. I handed the document to my mother-in-law. She took it. She looked confused. She said, "What is this?" I said, "Read it." She read the first line out loud. "This property belongs to Emma Catherine Chen in perpetuity as granted by the estate of Dorothy Margaret Chen." She stopped. She looked at me. She said, "What property?" I said, "The beach house, the one you were just planning to transfer to Matthew, the one you just told my daughter she could not visit because she is not a real member of the family." My father-in-law stood up. He said, "This cannot be real." I said, "It is recorded with the county." February 9th, 2015. My grandmother purchased the property from the Whitmore estate for $260,000. She placed it in a trust for my daughter on the day she was born. I am the trustee until Emma turns 25. My sister-in-law said, "Why would your grandmother leave a beach house to a child?" I did not answer that. I let the question sit in the air. My brother-in-law said, "How much is the house worth now?" I said, "The most recent appraisal was $740,000. But that is not really your concern." My mother-in-law was still holding the deed. Her hands were shaking slightly. She said, "We have been using this house for years. We have been maintaining it. We have been paying for repairs." I said, "I know. I have been reimbursing the trust for those expenses. The trust has covered property taxes, insurance, and major repairs since 2015. I have the receipts if you would like to see them." My father-in-law said, "Why did you not tell us this?" I said, "My grandmother asked me not to. She said I should let people think what they wanted. She said I would know the truth when it mattered." My husband finally looked up from his phone. He said, "You knew about this the whole time?" I said, "Yes." He said, "You let my family plan renovations. You let them think they were going to inherit this house. You let them humiliate themselves." I said, "I let them reveal who they were." "There is a difference." My mother-in-law said, "This is not right. We are family. You should have told us." I looked at my daughter. She was sitting on the couch with her suitcase, trying not to cry. I looked back at my mother-in-law. I said, "You just told my 5-year-old daughter she is not a real member of this family. You told her she could not come to a house that legally belongs to her, so I am not really interested in your definition of what is right." My husband's phone rang. He looked at the screen. He said, "It is Robert." Robert was the family lawyer. My husband answered. He listened. His face went pale, he hung up. He said, "Robert confirmed it. The deed is real, the trust is real. Emma owns the house." My brother-in-law said, "So what happens now?" I said, "That depends. Emma owns the property. I manage it as trustee. I decide who has access. I decide who stays there. I decide everything until she turns 25. My sister-in-law said, "You cannot be serious." "You are going to keep us out of the house?" I said, "I have not decided yet, but I am thinking about it." My mother-in-law put the deed down on the coffee table. She said, "You planned this. You waited for the perfect moment to embarrass us." I said, "I plan to protect my daughter's inheritance. I did not plan for you to tell her she does not belong. You did that on your own." Patricia called me that evening. She said, "I heard Robert called. How did it go?" I told her it went exactly as expected. She said, "Do you want to restrict their access to the property?" I told her not yet. I told her I wanted to see what they did next. She said that was smart. She said we had all the documentation we needed if things escalated. I thanked her. David sent me a message asking if I needed the financial summary. I told him not yet. I told him I might need it soon. He said it was ready whenever I wanted it. My husband did not speak to me for 3 days. When he finally did, he said, "You made my family look like fools." I said, "Your family made themselves look like fools when they told our daughter she was not a real member of the family." He said, "They did not mean it like that." I said, "Then how did they mean it?" He did not have an answer. My mother-in-law called me a week later. She said she wanted to apologize. She said things had gotten out of hand. She said she had not meant to hurt Emma's feelings. I asked her what she had meant. She said she just thought Emma was too young for the trip. I asked her why she said Emma was not a real member of the family. She did not answer that. I started documenting everything after that conversation. Every email, every text message, every phone call. Patricia told me to keep records of all communication about the property. She said if they tried to challenge the trust, we would need evidence of their behavior. I told her I understood. My sister-in-law sent me a message in May. She said she hoped we could move past this. She said family was more important than property. I did not respond. My brother-in-law called in June. He said he wanted to talk about the renovations. He said they had already invested time and money into planning. I told him those plans were not approved by the trustee. He said, "You cannot be serious." I said, "I am completely serious." He hung up. My mother-in-law tried a different approach in July. She called and asked if Emma was excited about the beach trip. I said Emma was very excited. She said, "So we are still doing the trip?" I said, "Emma is the owner of the property. Of course we are doing the trip." She said, "What about the rest of the family?" I said, "I am still deciding." She said, "You cannot keep us out of a house we have been using for years." I said, "Actually I can. I am the trustee. The property belongs to Emma. I make all decisions about access until she turns 25. She hung up. Patricia called me in early August. She said they are going to push back. "Are you ready?" I told her I was ready. She said, "Do you want to allow them access this year?" I said I was still thinking about it. She said, "What would make you feel comfortable?" I said, "An apology, a real one, to Emma, in person, with the whole family present." She said, "Do you think they will do that?" I said, "We are about to find out." I am going to stop there for now. Part 2 drops next, and that is where everything I just described gets used. Every document, every number, every conversation. Stay right here. I sent the email to my mother-in-law on August 3rd. I said, "The family is welcome at the beach house this year under the following conditions. 1. Emma receives a formal apology from every adult family member who was present at the April meeting. 2. The apology happens in person at the house on the first day of the trip. 3. Everyone who wants access to the property this year must acknowledge in writing that Emma is the legal owner." I copied Patricia on the email. My mother-in-law responded 6 hours later. She said, "This is ridiculous. We are not going to humiliate ourselves because you have a piece of paper." I want to know if you would have said what I said next, because I still think about it. I wrote back, "Then you are not coming to the beach house this year." I sent the email. I turned off my phone. My husband saw the email chain that night. He said, "You cannot be serious. You are going to cancel the entire family trip because they will not apologize?" I said, "I am not canceling anything. Emma and I are going. They are choosing not to come." He said, "This is insane. You are destroying my family over pride." I said, "Your mother told our daughter she does not belong. That is not pride. That is protection." He slept in the guest room that night. My mother-in-law called the next morning. I did not answer. She left a voicemail. She said, "We need to talk about this like adults. You are being unreasonable. Emma is too young to understand any of this. You are using her as a weapon." I saved the voicemail. Patricia had told me to save everything. My sister-in-law sent a group text to the family. She said, "Just so everyone knows, we are not able to use the beach house this year because of new restrictions." She did not explain what the restrictions were. She did not mention the apology. 3 family members texted me asking what happened. I did not respond. My father-in-law called on August 5th. He said, "Let us put this behind us. You have made your point. We understand Emma owns the house. We can move forward." I said, "Did you write the apology letter?" He said, "I am not writing a letter. I am apologizing right now. I am sorry if Emma's feelings were hurt." I said, "That is not the apology I requested." He said, "What more do you want?" I said, "I want you to acknowledge that what was said to her was wrong. I want you to acknowledge that she is a full member of this family. I want you to put it in writing." He said, "You are being ridiculous." I hung up. My husband tried again that night. He said, "They are not going to apologize. You know how they are. Can you please just let this go?" I said, "No." He said, "Why are you doing this?" I said, "Because if I let this go, they will do it again. They will find another way to tell Emma she does not belong. And next time it will be worse because they will know I will not stop them." He did not have an answer for that. My brother-in-law sent me a private message on August 7th. He said, "Look, I get it. My mom was out of line, but this is affecting the whole family. Kids are asking why the trip is canceled. Can we just skip the formal apology thing and move on?" I said, "The trip is not canceled. Emma and I are going on August 15th. Anyone who completes the requirements is welcome to join us." He said, "You are really going to make my mother grovel." I said, "I am asking your mother to acknowledge that she hurt a 5-year-old child and that it was wrong. If that feels like groveling, that tells you something." He did not respond. I called Patricia on August 8th. I said, "They are not going to do it." She said, "Then they are not going to the house." I said, "I know, I just wanted to confirm I have the authority to deny access." She said, "You have complete authority. The property belongs to Emma. You are the trustee. You make all decisions. If they show up anyway, you can have them removed for trespassing." I asked if it would really come to that. She said, "I do not know, but we are prepared if it does." I packed our car on August 14th. My daughter was so excited. She had her suitcase. She had made a list of things she wanted to do at the beach: build sandcastles, collect shells, look for crabs. She asked if grandmother and grandfather were coming. I told her I did not think so. She asked why. I said, "Sometimes grown-ups have disagreements. But we are still going to have a wonderful time." She accepted that. My husband said he was not coming. He said, "I am not going to be part of this." I said, "Okay." He said, "That is it, just okay?" I said, "You are choosing your family's pride over your daughter's dignity. I cannot make you see why that is wrong, so yes, okay." We left on August 15th at 6 in the morning. The drive took 3 hours. Emma slept most of the way. I thought about what I was going to say if they showed up anyway. I thought about whether I would actually call the police. I decided I would. We arrived at the house at 9. No one was there. The driveway was empty. I unlocked the door. Emma ran inside. She went straight to the bedroom she always slept in. She put her suitcase on the bed. She said, "This is my room, right?" I said, "This is your house, sweetheart. Every room is your room." She looked at me like she was trying to understand. Then she smiled and went to unpack. I walked through the house. It was exactly as I remembered. 7 bedrooms, large kitchen, living room with windows facing the ocean. My grandmother had bought this house 9 years ago. She had never stayed here. She bought it as an investment. She put it in the trust the day Emma was born. She died 3 months later. She never got to see Emma run through these rooms, but she made sure Emma would always have this place. I was in the kitchen when I heard the car. It was 11:30. I looked out the window. My mother-in-law's car. My father-in-law was driving. My mother-in-law was in the passenger seat. My brother-in-law's car pulled in behind them, then my sister-in-law's Mercedes. They had come anyway. I walked outside. Emma stayed inside. I had told her to stay in her room if anyone arrived. My mother-in-law got out of the car. She was carrying a bag of groceries. She said, "We decided to come after all. We can talk about everything once we are settled." She started walking toward the house. I stood in front of the door. I said, "Did you bring the apology letters?" She stopped. She said, "We are not doing that. We are family. We do not need formal letters to resolve our issues." I said, "Then you are not coming inside." My father-in-law said, "Do not be absurd. We have been coming to this house for 15 years. I said, "You have been coming to a house that my grandmother owned and that now belongs to my daughter. You are guests. Guests follow the rules or they do not enter." My brother-in-law said, "You are really going to keep us out in front of the kids?" His children were in the car. They were watching. I said, "You chose to bring them here without completing the requirements. That was your decision." My sister-in-law got out of her car. She said, "This is insane. You have completely lost perspective. It is a house." I said, "It is my daughter's house. And you told her she did not belong here. So no. You do not get to walk in like nothing happened." My mother-in-law's face changed. She looked at me the way people look at someone they have already decided does not matter. I had been waiting for that look for 4 years. She said, "Fine, you want an apology, I apologize, now move." I said, "That is not the apology I requested. I asked for written acknowledgement that what was said to Emma was wrong and that she is a full member of this family." She said, "I am not writing anything. I apologized." "That should be enough." I said, "It is not." My father-in-law said, "What exactly do you think you are accomplishing here? You are alienating the entire family. You are teaching Emma that family does not matter." I said, "I am teaching Emma that she does not accept cruelty from people who claim to love her. I am teaching her that she has value. I am teaching her that some boundaries are not negotiable." My mother-in-law said, "You are being dramatic. Emma is fine. Children forget these things." I said, "Emma asked me 3 times last week if she was really part of this family. She asked me if you were right. She asked me if there was something wrong with her that made her not belong. So no, she is not fine, and she will not forget. If you are still here, hit like. I need to know you saw that." My brother-in-law said, "Okay, you made your point. We screwed up. Can we please just go inside and figure this out?" I said, "Did you bring the written apology?" He said, "No." I said, "Then no, you cannot come inside." My sister-in-law said, "You know what, keep your house. We do not need this. We will rent a place down the beach. The kids will have more fun anyway." She got back in her car. My brother-in-law looked at his parents. He said, "Are we really doing this?" My father-in-law said, "She will calm down. Give her a few hours." My brother-in-law shook his head. He got in his car. They left. My mother-in-law said, "You are going to regret this." I said, "Maybe, but I am not going to regret letting people hurt my daughter and doing nothing about it." My father-in-law said, "We have put thousands of dollars into maintaining this property. We have paid for repairs. We have paid the utilities when the house was empty. You owe us." I said, "I have reimbursed the trust for every expense you reported. The trust has actually spent $43,000 more than you have contributed. Would you like to see the accounting?" He stared at me. He said, "You have been tracking this the whole time?" I said, "Yes." My mother-in-law said, "You planned this. You have been planning this for years." I said, "I plan to protect my daughter's inheritance. You gave me a reason to use that protection." She said, "We welcomed you into this family. We treated you like our own daughter. This is how you repay us." I said, "You told my 5-year-old child she was not a real member of the family. You dismissed her. You excluded her. You made her feel like she had to earn something she was born into. That is how you treated her. So no, you do not get to claim you welcomed us." My father-in-law said, "What do you want from us? You want us to beg? You want us to humiliate ourselves?" I said, "I want you to acknowledge that you were wrong. I want you to tell Emma you were wrong. I want you to mean it. That is all I have ever wanted." My mother-in-law said, "And if we do not," I said, "then you do not come to this house. Not this year, not next year, not until you do." She said, "You cannot keep us away forever." I said, "I can keep you away until Emma turns 25. That is 19 more years. I am willing to wait." My mother-in-law got back in the car. My father-in-law followed. They sat there for a moment. I thought they might get back out. They did not. My father-in-law started the car. They left. I stood in the driveway for a long time after they were gone. My hands had stopped shaking. I had been holding my breath. I let it out slowly. Emma came outside. She said, "Did they leave?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Are they coming back?" I said, "I do not know." She said, "Okay." She went back inside to play. I called Patricia. I told her what happened. She said, "How do you feel?" I said, "I do not know yet." She said, "You did the right thing." I said, "I hope so." She said, "You protected your daughter. That is always the right thing." My husband called that night. He said, "My mother is devastated. My father is talking about contesting the trust. You have destroyed everything." I said, "Your mother devastated our daughter. Your father can try to contest the trust if he wants. Patricia says it is airtight." He said, "I do not know if I can stay married to someone who would do this to my family." I said, "Then do not." He hung up. Emma and I spent a week at the beach, just the 2 of us. We built sandcastles. We collected shells. We looked for crabs. She did not ask about the family again. She was happy. That was enough. My sister-in-law sent me a message on the last day of the trip. She said, "You win. We will do the apology. Just tell us what you want it to say." I did not respond. I had not asked them to win or lose. I had asked them to acknowledge they hurt a child. The fact that they saw it as a competition told me everything. We drove home on August 22nd. My husband's car was not in the driveway. He had left a note. It said he was staying with his parents until I was ready to be reasonable. I put the note in a drawer. I unpacked. I made dinner. Emma and I ate together. She told me about her favorite part of the trip, building the biggest sandcastle. She said, "Can we go back next year?" "Just us?" I said. "Yes, we can go back every year if you want." She smiled. My father-in-law's lawyer sent a letter in September. It said they were exploring options to challenge the trust. Patricia responded. She sent them copies of the deed, the trust documents, the transfer records, and the accounting showing the trust had paid more in expenses than they had contributed. She also sent them a letter outlining potential claims for trespassing if they attempted to access the property without permission. The lawyer did not respond. My mother-in-law called in October. She said, "I have thought about what you said. I want to apologize to Emma. Can we set up a time?" I said. "Is this apology because you understand you were wrong or because you want access to the house?" She did not answer. I said, "Call me when you know the answer to that question." I hung up. My husband filed for separation in November. He said I had changed. He said I was not the person he married. He said I had become cold and calculating. I did not argue. I hired a divorce attorney. Her name was Michelle Torres. She was very good. The divorce was finalized in March. I got primary custody. My husband got visitation every other weekend. The settlement included terms about the beach house. He waived any claim to it in exchange for a larger share of our other assets. He got the house we had lived in together. I got my business, my savings, and Emma's trust remained untouched. Michelle said it was a fair deal. I agreed. Emma is 7 now. We went to the beach house again last summer, just the two of us. We go every August. She loves it there. She has started calling it our house. Not the beach house, our house. My mother-in-law sent a letter last month, a real one, handwritten. She said she had been wrong. She said she had let pride and assumptions cloud her judgment. She said she was sorry for hurting Emma. She said she understood if I never forgave her, but she hoped Emma would. She did not mention the house. I showed the letter to Emma. I asked her what she wanted to do. She said, "I do not remember what she said to me, but I remember you were upset, and I remember we had fun at the beach without them." I said, "Do you want to see her?" She thought about it. She said, "Maybe someday, but not yet." I told my mother-in-law that Emma was not ready. She said she understood. My business is doing well. I made $467,000 last year. I have 6 employees now. I am thinking about expanding. Emma wants to be a marine biologist. She talks about it constantly. She says when she is older she wants to study the ocean near our house. Our house. She says it like it is the most natural thing in the world. My mother says I should have handled things quietly. She says I embarrassed my husband's family unnecessarily. She says family problems should stay private. I told her my daughter's dignity is not a family problem. It is a non-negotiable fact. She did not bring it up again. I still have all the documents. The deed, the trust papers, the accounting records, the voicemails, the emails. I keep them in a folder in my office. I do not look at them often, but I know they are there. Emma asked me last week if her cousins could come to the beach house this summer. I said, "Do you want them to?" She said, "I do not know, maybe, they are nice." I told her we could think about it. She said okay and went back to her homework. That was enough. I do not hate my former in-laws. I do not think about them much at all anymore. They made a choice. I made a choice. We all live with our choices. The beach house is worth $890,000 now. The trust has grown to $312,000. Emma will have options when she is older. She will have security. She will have a place that is completely hers. That is what my grandmother wanted. That is what I protected. So did I go too far or not far enough? Tell me in the comments.